وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK Radio 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
And good morning, everybody. This is U.S. Arab Radio's Radio Baladi on Friday, January 14, 2022. I'm your guest host, Ray Hanania. We're broadcasting live on WNZK AM 690 radio and also live on the U.S. Arab Radio Facebook page, which I urge you to check out because you can message me and our guests and we could take some questions there if you want. First, I want to thank, I was remiss last Friday when I was sitting in for Atif Gawad. I want to thank journalist Atif Gawad for having me sit in with him, for him last week for a wide-ranging discussion that he organized, which, and he did a great job with Professor David DeRoche, Professor Frederick Pearson, and Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji. It was a great discussion. So I'm bringing back Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji this morning to continue the discussion and hope to also speak in future shows with both DeRoche and Pearson too. So thank you, Atif Gawad, for a great journalist and radio host here at U.S. Arab Radio. He deserves the plug. We're waiting for Dr. Katranji to call in, but we're going to be talking about Syria, which is now in its 11th year of turmoil and division. And we've also noticed that the resistance to Assad seems to be breaking down, even at the Arab League and in Jordan, where they're slowly bringing him back into the fold. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. Syria is divided like a game board into 4 regions. Iraq also, we'll talk about that, where rockets were fired against the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, suspected by pro-Iranian and Hezbollah militants. Are we doing anything about Iran, or are we just going to go back into the Obama years where nothing was done? And of course, there's more violence by Israel, this time killing another American Palestinian from Milwaukee, who was murdered by the IDF during a nighttime raid near Ramallah this past week. The Middle East continues in turmoil, and the Biden administration is just, I don't know what he's doing, is smiling at the Arab and Muslim community and not doing anything better than having someone yell at us and not do anything for Arabs and Muslims. What's the difference? One guy smiling, one guy calling us names. Is that what we accept? Hey, nobody's attacking us, so we'd be happy with that? I don't know. I think the Arab community has to answer for President Biden's failings. Was the last election all about politics, or was it about doing what is right? And with all this turmoil in the Middle East, our tensions with Russia continue to increase. We'll talk with Professor Katranji when he connects in this morning, hopefully soon, about these and other issues, and we'll take some of your calls. Our call-in number this morning is 248-557-3300. That's 248-557-3300. We're also broadcasting, like I mentioned, live on the U.S. Arab Radio Network Facebook page at U.S. Arab Radio. Check it out and send us some comments. Make sure you also check out my columns at arabnews.com and also at hanania.com, where I do a podcast and publish syndicated columns around the United States. We're going to take our first break here and wait for our guests to join us in a few minutes, and then we can talk about some of these issues. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to be right back right after these messages.
Life is a nonprofit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
While we've been staying safe at home, scientists have been on a journey. The destination, a COVID-19 vaccine. This journey began decades ago with research into other coronaviruses. Scientists built from there with months of research and development, cooperation with other experts worldwide, and clinical trials on tens of thousands of volunteers of diverse race, age, and health status. They arrived at a safe, effective vaccine, and hundreds of thousands in Michigan have already been vaccinated. But the next step is ours. We need to get the vaccine when we can. Keep wearing masks correctly and taking precautions until we reach our destination, freedom from COVID-19 and getting back to the lives we love. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Enjoy the first Syrian-style cuisine in Michigan. At Damas Cuisine and Catering, you'll find a wide selection of Syrian foods and sweets in our menu, like frike, hoisin, grape leaves with steak, mishawi platter, hot mahashi, char-grilled kebab, shawarma, and much more. Get super fast delivery from Damas Cuisine and Catering right to your door. Order online at damascuisine.com/menu and track your order live. Damas Cuisine and Catering, 28841 Orchard Lake Road in Farmington Hills. Call 248-987-4985.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
For an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bottom, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
And welcome back to U.S. Arab Radio's Radio Ballady. It's Friday, January 14, 2022, and I'm your guest host this morning, live on WNZK AM 690. We're just waiting for our guest, Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji, to join us. We had a great show last week with Professor David DeRoche and Professor Frederick Pearson and Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji. And I want to bring them all back one at a time. And I wanted to focus this show with Dr. Katranji talking about what's happening in Syria. It's almost like everybody's given up. And is that what everybody wants? Really, you know, after everything, 11 years ago, it's been 11 years since all this started. The latest cycle of violence and civil war and murders and killings are just horrible. And mainly, everybody's given up on Syria, fighting with it because of the Russians. The Russians under Vladimir Putin have restored their old communist expansion policies, and they're disrupting everything. Vladimir Putin wants to start a war in the Ukraine. He's already fighting the government in Kazakhstan and people to prevent democracy. He's reversed all the changes that Gorbachev made following the Reagan years, when Gorbachev decided to move away from the tyrannical communism to bring more democracy to the people of the Soviet Union, breaking up the Soviet Union and giving independence to all those different countries that were under the hammer and sickle of the Soviet Union. Vladimir Putin, however, was the former KGB chief. And during the last at least 20 years or more, he's been reversing everything to reestablish, the control of the oligarchies, the billionaires. These are wealthy people beyond wealth that you've never seen. And they prefer to have tyranny in Russia because that's how they make their money. They can't have democracy because in democracy, the little people actually get their money. So Russia is wreaking havoc throughout Asia and the Middle East, and causing all kinds of problems in the Middle East. And we're seeing some of that in Syria. We're seeing how I think the Biden administration is making a big mistake with Russia by taking off the table the threat of war. If Russia attacks the Ukraine, we should be threatening him with war. And I'm not a warmonger, but I do know that in strategic international negotiations, if their ultimate option is not war and the ultimate option is sanctions, there's nothing to push tyrants like Vladimir Putin to back down. And he'll settle for anything, and he'll keep pushing. And in the end, it might end up in war. So you use war as an option to pressure people to choose peace and compromise. So I'm not really quite sure what Biden is doing, but obviously he would get the collar for this. In Syria, it's the 11th year of turmoil there. And it's just nothing has been done other than giving Russia control over the country. The Russians control Syria. I don't think, does anybody believe that Bashar al-Assad controls Syria? I don't think so. I think he's the puppet head who was saved by Vladimir Putin, who's expanding communism. And by the way, Russia is being empowered to pursue this power grab all over the world because of the fact that nobody's standing up to, Russia, and because the power politics internationally is kind of falling his way. He's getting what he wants. We're kind of backing down. I mean, look what we did in Afghanistan. We really kind of ran tail between our military legs. And even though we killed Osama bin Laden 10 years ago or whatever, he's gone. The Taliban are back in power in Afghanistan, and they're slowly imposing all their craziness again, especially oppressing women. And what are we doing about it? I'm just not quite sure. I'm just not sure what they're doing. But what's to stop another Osama bin Laden from coming to Afghanistan and doing something there? It's just terrible. So give us a buzz at 248-557-3300 and or check us out on the Facebook page to see how things are going. I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say. 248-557-3300. And I think, we're live. And I'm going to check to see if we have any questions or comments. You post them on Facebook, and I'll be happy to answer them. So we're waiting for our guest. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why Dr. Katranji. I was really looking forward to him being on. It's not his fault, obviously, but I'm sure something is up. But if you want to call in, 248-557-3300, I'm happy to talk to you about all these and more issues. I think we were having an issue with the internet, but still I don't see Dr. Katranji. You're back. Yes, thank you, Mike. I don't know what it is. The internet so darn unreliable, right? Or who knows? It could be the Russians. harassing us. But you can go back to US Arab Radio on Facebook and join us there. It's always disappointing when there's a internet hassle, like that, interrupting what we're trying to do. So let's go to Jerry Haba, our very reliable listener, who is calling in. Jerry, thank you for calling in this morning, buddy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ray Hanania. Good morning, and thank you for taking my call. And I didn't have the opportunity to wish you a happy New Year. I want to wish you a happy New Year to you and to your family.
Thank you.
And God bless you, and for giving us this program, this radio talk show. I know you are waiting for Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji. Hopefully everything's okay. I just took an opportunity to fill the gap before the doctor comes. But if he comes, the doctor, please.
I don't know if you lost me or I lost you.
Mr. Ray Hanania, I like Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji always. He got a famous word in Arabic. مع السلامة معكم العفو والعافية. العفو والعافية means he wish you good health and protection. Oh, God bless him. Talking, Mr. Ray, about the 11 years civil war in Syria. Believe me, Mr. Ray, I will not call it a civil war. It's the war of the nations, the superpower in the Syrian territory. Believe me, Mr. Ray, that country was very peaceful and lovely countries. And I just don't know what happened suddenly overnight. That country has been destroyed. There is no such a building safe from apartments, from houses, from businesses. We thought Iraq was bad, but Syria is much worse. I hate to say that, Mr. Ray.
Right.
And 11 years, and you look, there is no such a sun beyond the clouds. It's still cloudy over the Syrian territory, and nobody pays the price, and nobody is a victim except the Syrian people themselves. It's very, very, very sad, very bad humanitarian situation, Mr. Ray. And I don't know.
Yeah, it is, I think, and nothing's being done. That's the worst part. Nothing has changed. Syria really is getting worse, not better. And I really believe it has a lot to do with the Russians expanding their influence over the area.
Mr. Ray, I do believe Russia, I don't know if they still have one or two or more military bases in Syria. I think they do have a military base, right, Mr. Ray?
Yes.
The Russian people?
Yes.
Russian government.
Yes, and I'm sorry, again, I'm sorry, Jerry, about the internet disruptions this morning. It's unfortunate, and I apologize for that. Not sure why it's happening, but it's probably the Russians that are taking me out. What do you think?
Believe me, with Mr. Putin, I will not be surprised. Anything Mr. Putin will do, and look what happened in the Russia-Ukraine border. 100,000 Russian troops on the border with that country, and I'm afraid, Mr. Ray, one day the surprise will wake up in the morning and they say Russian troops are inside Ukraine territory. Look what happened. What was 5 years ago when they took the island? In Arabic, we call it Jazirat al-Qarm, the term peninsula, and they took it. And where is the United Nations? Where is this? Anybody say something about Russian leave? Look how Saddam Hussein, the former president of Iraq,
Ray Hanania.
Kuwait.
Sorry.
And that's what's wrong, what he did. But look, 33 countries, they came together and keep them out of Kuwait. Now, why the superpower, they cannot do that to Russia when he took over the Krim Island? I know your topic is about Syria.
Yep.
seems to me the international world, the international law, United Nations, is not fair. It's not fair. They have double standards. The superpower, they cannot tell Putin out.
Jerry, I'll tell you that we're having internet issues, and I apologize for that. I'm going to take a break, and we do have Abdalmajid on the line, so we're going to bring him back. Okay. But thank you, Jerry, for calling in.
Thank you for your show, and my best to Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji. And thank you, Ray, and God bless you. And thanks to your producer, Mr. Mike.
All right, buddy. Thanks. I'm Ray Hanania here at WNZK AM 690. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk with our guest, Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji, who's on with us. Hopefully, Dr. Abdalmajid, everything will be good. We've been having internet issues all morning.
I'm telling you, I've been trying to get on, and
I'm so sorry. I don't know what it is. I think I mentioned the Russians, and I think they're sabotaging us. I think that's it. So, all right, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
Your estimated time of arrival is 9:17.
I'm late. I'll have to punch it.
Speeding will save you just 1 minute and 36 seconds. It will also increase your risk of a crash, as well as the odds that you will be stopped and issued an expensive speeding ticket.
Yeah, but...
In 1 year, there were 22,000 speeding-related crashes in Michigan, resulting in 200 deaths.
If I had someone in the car with me, I'd drive slower. But it's just me.
This is not a logical response. Though you have no passenger, surrounding cars contain 27 others, including 5 children and 1 Labrador Retriever.
How do you know all this stuff?
I know everything, Kevin.
Your risk of a crash increases with every mile you drive over the speed limit. So slow down. Speed enforcement is happening now. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600. Kashat's Mediterranean Market in Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, and seafood dinners. Plus, they offer big trays of your favorite food and so much more. Kashat's Mediterranean Market in Shish Kebab is located at 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills and is open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So stop in or call Kashat's today at 248-538-9552. That number again, 248-538-9552. Kashat's Mediterranean Market in Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
Are your hands feeling numb? Do you feel pain opening up a jar, turning a key? Are you noticing that your elbow and your shoulder are becoming stiff? Or were you recently injured in your arm? Hello, I'm Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji, and at the Katranji Hand Center, which just recently opened down the street from the Somerset Mall, we can provide you with the latest in hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder care. Visit us at www.katranjihandcenter.com to learn the latest techniques that we have to offer you, and I look forward to taking care of you.
Visit us in Troy at 1565 West Big Beaver Road, Building F, or call Katranji Hand Center for an appointment at 248-869-4263. That's 248-869-4263.
Oh, can you guys hear me? Sorry about this.
Yes, now I can.
There we go. Good morning to everybody. I apologize. I think it's just upgrades. They've been upgrading networks across the state here in Michigan. I'm sure they're upgrading network, and then obviously, as we start using our internet again, we're facing all the glitches that the upgrades, improve and ruin at the same time.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what the cause is this morning, but it's very disruptive. Yeah, and it's unfortunate because in today's world, the internet is so important. Maybe it has to do with the fact that the Supreme Court threw out President Biden's mandate yesterday, requiring all companies with 100 or more employees to get the vaccination. Who knows? This could be an anti-vax protest, and we don't realize where it's really coming from.
But Ray, this kind of highlights the politics that we see globally, right? It's about access. Yes. So, it's about bandwidth. How much information are we getting from our internet sources, and what type of information? Where are we getting it, and when are we getting it? So it's really intriguing that you could see that with a program like ours, in which we do live stream, disruption of the internet suddenly silences our particular voice, and then other voices can get heard. But now you don't know whether there's an intent behind it, or just it's the coincidence that will just create a political trend that has long-term consequences.
Right. It could be Layla El-Husseini doing this because we do such a good job sometimes without her. Maybe she's just trying to make us look bad. Actually, we love Layla. Layla is a great journalist, and she really brings a lot of information. But listen, tell us about Syria. It's the 11th year of this turmoil, and it looks like Assad is being slowly brought back into the fold at the Arab League, by Jordan, and I think it's all about Russia.
The consequence of the Syrian civil war has far-reaching impacts, as we know, on a global level. It affected. Did I get unmuted again? It affected. It affected.
I can hear you good, so just keep it up.
Oh, okay, you can hear me. Okay, it affected European elections. It affected even debates on immigration, national refugee policy. So its impacts are beyond, I think, Assad per se. I think that what we're seeing in Syria has nothing to do with Assad particularly. I think you put it clearly. It's more about Russia. And therefore, legitimization of Assad, I don't think is what's occurring. I think now it's a debate on what client states are going to exist within what was used to be known as Syria, and how that's going to be established. It's very clear the Biden administration is maintaining very strong ties in the Northeast with the Kurds, kind of a carryover of Obama policy. I think that largely there's an independent region in the Idlib area that is under Turkish control. There are the Damascus in the south under Assad's control. And then there are these little entity states. I mean, you even have the area of Horan that borders Jordan, in which the ties with Jordan are almost as strong as the ties with the historical Syrian regime. I don't think it's a legitimization as much as countries are dealing with the reality on the ground. And the reality on the ground is you have a country divided, a country with various spheres of influence. And as the geopolitical shifts in the Middle East that we discussed in last week's show continue to manifest more on what's going on in Libya, in Tunisia, in the Gulf states, and obviously Iran and Turkey's emergence in terms of the regional power and regional strength, I think that Syria becomes more of an appetizer rather than the main dish.
So it's almost like acceptance of the division. It's because of what's happening in Syria.
I think that's exactly it. I think what it is that what's going to change in Syria fundamentally is going to be how any of the other major players are going to change. I mean, there's over 36 countries with different armies, militias, representatives inside Syria. You can't call this a victory for Assad in any sense of the imagination, but at the same time, it's clearly not a victory for the opposition that tried to get rid of him. It's basically just accepting the reality on the ground. I do think that we will see, especially with the economic impact, I think this is a very bitter winter that's going on in Syria. The lira is worthless. The big issue right now, what's making headlines in Syria are the continual methamphetamine caches that the Lebanese government has now captured from smugglers from the Assad-controlled areas of Syria, and the methamphetamines that were captured in the Dubai ports in December. And that, in the long run, that's going to play a negative role as well, because if Assad can't export anything worthwhile other than drugs, he's going to find himself in the very hot water he found himself 11 years ago.
Why are they turning to drugs? Is that because it's their only ability to raise money? Or, I mean, it's almost like going back to the years when we were funding the Contras by selling cocaine and crack, to raise money for the Contra rebels against the Sandinistas. Are they really turning toward drugs in that way? Or is it just that drugs are so below the public marketplace and illegal that they can get away with it?
Well, no, I think it's exactly that. I think what's happening is you have a narco state that's emerging under the guidance of the Assad regime, because the lira is worthless. So you're looking for some form of asset valuation that can give you quick cash, quick capital, and in stable currency. And so again, it shows you the inability of the Syrian regime to really offer anything other than say, well, we're not as bad as ISIS, which is no way to run a state. And so I agree with you. I think
we're not as bad. I can imagine President, and I use air quotes, Assad, changing the motto of Syria. We're not as bad as ISIS.
That's exactly it. And honestly, if you watch his recent interviews, that's all he parrots. He doesn't offer anything new. He doesn't offer any guidelines, any reforms, any institutional building. Look, the fundamental thing that we saw in Syria is its deinstitutionalization under the Ba'athists fundamentally not only weakened the regime, the state itself, but the regime itself discovered that it's very weakened. It didn't even have institutions for it to rely on to bolster its influence or control. Assad didn't win. Basically, Iran and Russia won. Assad happened to be their most desirable or most favorable. And as a matter of fact, you can see that in the most recent variances in Syria, Russia and Iran are kind of standing on opposite sides of several issues. That's creating a new divide within the Ba'athist regime. So we're not calling this a victory. So what do dictators resort to when they're cash poor? They're gonna look for the lowest common denominator, which is the drug trade. And we see that not only in Syria, we saw that in southern Lebanon for a while. We saw that in Afghanistan. We saw that in Somalia. We see in other, obviously Central and South America. You find that when countries can't figure out how to improve their situation within the global economic forum, they resort to the last resort to what's the most convertible product that can go to hard currency.
Wow, that's amazing. Listen, stay on the line, Dr. Katranji. We're going to take our last break, and that'll give us a nice segment where we can talk about some of these issues, because I want to get into Iraq, what's happening there, and then look at the bigger picture about Russia, the Ukraine, Kazakhstan. It looks like Russia is on the move. These are the beginnings of some scary things happening, I think. This is Ray Hanania here with my guest, Abdalmajid Katranji, and we are talking about Syria, the Middle East, and the role of the Russians. And I'm sorry that we're having a little bit of internet difficulties. It's not the radio station's fault. I'm not exactly sure where it's coming from, but we've managed to keep everything going. So just hang tight with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
Are you going to start a restaurant or a grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
Ziad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziad.com. That's www.ziad.com. Ziad, quality products from our family to yours.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true in the face of flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Now more than ever, getting your flu vaccine is essential. Flu vaccines are proven to be safe and effective. In a typical year, flu vaccinations prevent millions of illnesses and thousands of hospitalizations and deaths in the U.S. Everyone 6 months and older should be vaccinated this flu season. To protect our essential workers and those who are at highest risk for flu complications, such as people over 65, children younger than 5, pregnant women, and those with underlying health conditions, we need to face the flu together. Help us hit the flu head on. Get your flu vaccine to protect your community and your loved ones. Learn more at michigan.gov/flu. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
And we're back here at Radio Bellady on the U.S. Arab Radio Network, Friday, January 14, 2022. I'm Ray Hanania. My website is hanania.com. And of course, right at the top, I just want to apologize again for some internet issues. I believe Vladimir Putin is listening to our show and is directing the hacking against us, trying to stop us from exposing his expansion throughout Asia and the Middle East. We're on with Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji, a political analyst and expert on the Middle East, Islam, and Muslim American politics. He's a board member of Emgage Action USA, one of the leading Muslim American political advocacy groups in the U.S. He's also serves on the national board of the Syrian American Council. The bigger picture, Dr. Katranji, with Russia, it's not just Syria, is it?
No, it's not. I think you highlighted it beautifully. It's Kazakhstan. It's Azerbaijan. We saw that last year, Azerbaijan and Armenia in their brief war. I think what we're seeing is just a reassertion of regional conflicts that we saw back in the 50s and 60s, as we're discovering nation states no longer have the viability or the sustainability that the initial United Nations Charter had. There's an intriguing statistic that the number of countries on the globe has tripled since the initial United Nations Charter. And remember that the United Nations was supposed to be introducing stability across the globe, right? It was supposed to empower nations to stabilize. So I think that doesn't happen. As a matter of fact, oftentimes the UN has exacerbated underlying tensions and underlying political forces by its policy of kind of picking the whoever is in charge of the state at the time policy, rather than looking at the interest of institutional or foundational statehood. And we're seeing this globally. I think Russia's behavior now is, and I think China's behavior, I think India's behavior. Let's not forget, China and India just fought a brief war in the Himalayas with several battles over just to pass right by Nepal. So these global conflicts or these regional conflicts, I think, are going to flare. The Middle East is always the center of the world. That's the fact. That's why it's called the middle. And so these players invariably their footprint is going to be in that backyard.
Do you think this has to do with the way we left Afghanistan? Does it send a bad message that was interpreted by the Russians and I think also the Chinese? What's stopping them from just invading and taking over Taiwan after seeing all this stuff happening? Is it a message that the United States isn't willing to take a strong stand?
I think there's definitely a sense on a global level whenever you travel, and I've been to, from as close as Canada and as far away as Dubai, there's a sense that America is in retreat. Clearly, it's still a great nation, the most powerful military in the world. It's not in surrender, and people kind of confuse the two terms. But the idea here is that America is unwilling to kind of defend its interests like it did back in the 80s. I mean, under Reagan, it was like, whatever America wants, we're not going to do anything until America gives us the blessing. Even the enemies of the United States kind of waited for permission to act as an enemy from the United States. And you can see its global dominance from a cultural, currency, and a collateral way. I think that the key action that everybody forgets, when Obama put a red line, ironically, against the Assad regime, and said that any use of chemical weapons will not be tolerated. And Assad tested that metal, right? And Obama very quickly backed away. Several of my colleagues, and I'm sure your colleagues that are military analysts, said that this was the worst possible thing that Obama could have done. That he actually pushed back American military might by a century. But because here you had a country with the Roosevelt doctrine, speak softly, carry a big stick, the Monroe doctrine. All of a sudden, Obama's doctrine said, yeah, you know what, give your word and then waffle. And I think that gave rise for the Taliban to come back in Afghanistan. I think it told China to go build an island in the middle of the South China Sea. It told Russia to go grab the Crimea. It told Iran to take over Syria. So I think that you can see that from the behavior of the Obama doctrine, we're dealing with the severe consequences that we see today, only magnified by what we saw in Afghanistan.
So you're basically saying that Obama he looked like he was drawing a red line, in the sand, and not to use chemical weapons. And for at least a short period of time, it looked like he was standing by that, but he abandoned that, didn't he? Pretty quickly? Correct.
And as you know, what Obama failed to... Go ahead. What Obama failed to realize is he's not the prime minister of the United States. He's the president of the United States of America. And that when he's making these statements, the entire world, specifically the free world, is watching. And I think his abject failure, he took apart MEPI, the Middle East Policy Institute. He took apart so many programs that historically maintained the ascendancy of the United States as the global and regional superpower all over the world. His backtracking on a lot of these programs resulted in what we see today. I don't think he'll ever realize the degree of damage, because the man has had zero military experience, and we see that consequence. Now, Trump only exacerbated these things because when you saw that, he spoke very loudly. Rocket Man with North Korea, and what is it called? Fire and Fury. He talked a gigantic game, but at the same time, I don't think he even understood what his role is as president of the United States. And so now you have Biden.
Trump's only role, I think, was that he was unpredictable, and that unpredictability put everybody on caution.
Correct.
I think people weren't sure that, if they did something, what Trump might or might not do. Let me ask you a question about power politics and international strategy. Isn't it a mistake for Biden not to put the threat of military conflict on the table in dealing with Russia? He's taken it off the table. He hasn't mentioned it. He's removed it as a influence or a threat. So if I'm Russia, I'm thinking, what do I have to lose? He's not going to start a war with us. So why should I stop?
I think you're very accurate, Ray. I think that countries like Russia, under a very stable regime of Putin, countries like China, under Xi Jinping, with very stable central authorities, if they're not going to hear a firm action, they only respond to that. And so Biden is oftentimes seen as a continuation of Obama policy. Because remember, he was vice president. So people are saying, well, let's look at his history. Clearly, this is not a person who understands that really diplomacy needs the threat of a phone line came in because I as you know, with the internet kind of down in our area, I'm using the phone to connect. So, yep. But what I was saying is just simply that, again, the speak softly, carry a big stick doctrine is absolutely vital. And we don't see that. We don't see policy by Biden where he's making a statement and suddenly the Fifth Fleet is right off the coast.
So there's no big stick, basically, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So when you see the big stick gone, if I were Russia, I'd say, hey, what's the worst that could happen? Some sanctions? We could deal with that. And if you're Germany, which is, being pushed to stop buying oil from Russia, why would they stop? What are the consequences? If they thought that there was going to be a war, Germany might stop, buying that oil, and Russia might consider some other option. But as long as that threat of war, and I don't want to see us get into a war, obviously, but that threat of war sometimes can prevent war.
Absolutely. It's peace through strength, right? I mean, we saw that, right? We're products of the Cold War. We saw it work effectively. I mean, it wasn't like the Cold War that there were no wars, but the idea of mutual assured destruction was very effective in making sure people sat at the table. The problem here is that there was none of that centralization that we saw back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. Right? Everything's so disparate. I mean, any actor or player who decides to want to show up and as you can see, you don't need to blow something up. Just take down their internet and watch the chaos that happens.
Right. We lost you there for a second.
Yeah. Sorry. So just take down their internet. Now, here's the thing. We are on the cusp of some very serious crisis. I'm walking into stores right now. And we're a great country, and we remain great. You know what I'm saying? So, as the United States of America, and I got to emphasize to the listeners here is that we're discussing how America is going to maintain its authority on a global level, because let's face it, despite all of its sins, right? The good that America does, and I'm a very big Pax Americana kind of guy, is still greater than the faults that it creates. But this blind action as it enters into the new global reality, how it handled Afghanistan, how it handled Iraq, how it's trying to engage on a global level, not understanding the importance of Bitcoin, having this confusion over vaccination being played out globally, and then having these debates, the January 6th riots then only send the wrong message on a global level, that this is a country in retreat. Putin, Xi Jinping, India, Iran, other countries, they're going to look at this and say, wait a minute, these guys who are always holier than thou about policy clearly have the very same internal issues that they claim we have and don't know how to fix. I think America made a huge mistake during the Arab Spring, not really enforcing institutionalization of democratic processes. Now, that's not to say pick a winner. that, Sisi is clearly the better option for Egypt than the
Muslim Brotherhood.
The Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, so so we're not saying that you have to pick the winner, but my point is, it's much easier as a country to deal with institutions than to deal with strongmen, and the strongmen that have become so eminent on the global level have controlled their institutions, not weakening them, actually making them more powerful.
It seems like to me that the problem is not being strong. I think the United States was weak in dealing with Syria. I think the United States was weak in dealing with Afghanistan. I think the United States is weak because we're polarized as a nation. We're fighting ourselves. We can't come together. So I think all those things, if I'm the Russians, if I'm Putin, I'm looking at the game board and saying, if we ever had an opportunity to do something with the United States at its weakest point, this would be the moment to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember, this is a game of strategy. And when your opponent is at his weakest, that's when you try to take the most. Because when your opponent eventually gets stronger again, he can only take back part of what you already took. I think one of the things that we saw in the Azerbaijan-Armenian war, to kind of highlight that, is that Armenia was able to take back vast swaths of territory and expand a little bit under the Turkish guidance. And again, I reemphasize, I think Turkey has a very important role economically and globally, as a military power, as an economic power, as a regional power. People don't understand Turkey's not just part of the Middle East. Turkey's part of Central Asia. There are 800 million people who speak some form of Turkish language from China into Russia into Turkey. So I agree with you that these players now are saying there's a new reality on the ground. I think even when it comes to currency, we used to talk about the US dollar, and now we talk about Bitcoin. We talk about Bitcoin as an alternative because it's a decentralized trade, and we're watching a currency that has no country to back it up attain values that are astronomical. I mean, Bitcoin got up to $71,000 at one point. That's not a small consequence of the new reality. America has to retool itself, re-strategize itself, and re-express its strength through these new methods. Otherwise, it will find itself at the table, but not at the head of the table. I think, Ray, you may have frozen.
Yeah, I still hear you pretty good, even though the internet off and on. The phone lines are still good, so at least we have that.
Not a problem. I don't want to bore the crowd that you just keep traveling on. So, but
I know. And again, I apologize for the internet, but we only got a couple minutes. We only have a couple minutes left. But it seems to me that Biden, and the sad thing is we're in his first year only.
Correct.
And we have 3 more years of the Biden administration. And I don't think he's going to be the tough person that we need. We need somebody tough. We need somebody to stand up to Russia and China and tell them, you do this, they're going to be not just severe consequences. We're ready to do what needs to be done in a way that scares them and frightens them into saying, wow, maybe this is going to lead to war. They don't want war. We don't want war. But without that threat of war, and I don't believe Biden is ever going to bring that threat up because I don't think he can do it. We have the weakest Congress we've ever had. And it's going to flip over, I think, this year in the election toward the Republicans, and we're going to be even more divided. I don't know what to do. I'm worried about our future.
I agree with you, Ray. I think that the fundamental flaw that we're seeing in American politics is that we're debating the next election even before the election in front of us passes.
Right.
Country that deals with that basically sends no message, right? It says, we're not even stable internally. We're busy fighting the 2024 election today. And I think that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party really has to gain control of its various factions to start understanding that this is not a game when it comes to maintaining your identity as either Democrat or Republican through the United States government and its role, not only nationally, but globally. I mean, again, this is where we look at. I think that's the core here. That America cannot even catch its breath after an election to consolidate. Biden, in so many ways, is still arguing about Donald Trump. He's gone.
Right.
Forward.
Right.
Policy.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think we're looking at the wrong issues. I think as a country, we're focused on some stupid political garbage that is fun to argue because for extremists, but the people in the middle, we only have one choice: go to the right or go to the left. There's no center movement where everybody is together.
Correct.
We only got a minute left. What do you think we have to do as a country to change this and prevent? Because I think when you don't threaten war as an option in a situation like we're in now, war becomes almost inevitable because we don't control it.
That is correct. It's for the United States. I think it's very important. The points that you highlighted. Number one, stop fighting about the next election. Create policy today. Debate policy. There's nothing wrong with debate, even if it's public. But debate and get to policy today to understand that you need to come to a conclusion now rather than after the next election. You don't have to worry. They're worried about the consequences of a midterm, so they're trying to make policy on it. The midterms haven't happened yet. Policy that happens today is not going to show up very greatly in the midterm 8 months from now, because if inflation rates are 21%, no one's going to care what you debated today, right? But if inflation is down, no one's going to care what you debated today. Take care of today so that you can address tomorrow. I think that's clearly the most important thing from American policy. And I think now America has to understand again, rely on its military, not to create war, but to represent and highlight all the great things that the American military does, can do, and can serve. Look, the American military provides more hospital beds, more incubators, more medicines across the globe than any other organization. People don't realize that because no one wants to hear that, hey, look, my hospital was built by the American military. So I think we can highlight our might, not just through the strength that we have, but through the technologies and the uses that our military can provide, given our strength. And then obviously that, hey, look, if we can give you the carrot, but if you want the stick, that can come too.
All right, thank you. I want to thank our guest, Dr. Abdalmajid Katranji, political analyst and expert on the Middle East, Islam, and Muslim American politics, a board member of Emgage Action USA, and one of the leading Muslim American political advocacy groups in the U.S. He also serves on the national board of the Syrian American Council. Dr. Katranji, we got to do this again because we can't allow Putin to block this discussion like
I'm with you
today.
I'm with you.
All right.
He hates good advice to his enemies.
All right. Anyway, I want to thank Mike Chubka in the office for doing such a great job of helping us handle the internet eruptions. I'm Ray Hanania. We'll talk again soon. Thank you, everybody, for listening.